Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachakodash. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and salutations to the Akim who are tuning into these videos. In this video, I wanted to read into certain chapters going into Esau Edom's nature. And right here in the first book of Maccabees 1 and 1, it goes into how Alexander, he didn't have any offspring, so he couldn't distribute his lands and everything that he all the inheritances to any of his seed because he didn't have a seed. Rather, he had to split all the things that he owned and the jurisdictions that he took over in Egypt and Turkey and all those places in the Greek areas to his four generals. And so I'm going to start here reading in 1 Maccabees 1 and 1. It says, "And it happened after that Alexander the son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Shedem, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead the first over Greece." And so this right here represents another section in that vision in the book of Daniel that Nebuchadnezzar saw, the statue. And so this right here was basically just the transition from one group of heathens to the next group of heathens for them to rule the earth. And that was all through Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. That was his will for that to happen. And so Alexander basically took down Darius, the Persians, the Medes, and then he started claiming all of the other lands around that place. It's said in secular history that Alexander the Greek cried because there was no more lands to conquer. Once he was able to just grasp as much as he can, because it was in his heart to steal and covet, that once pretty much he wasn't able to do that, he started to cry. And so going into basically that's like Esau Edom's spirit, and he's got the blessing of the sword. And by the blessing of the sword is the only means that he's going to be able to get any type of advantage or leverage. The reason why Esau Edom is at the top right now is one, because the Heavenly Father allowed him to rule for this short period, and two, because of the blessing that he gave him ultimately, going back to Jacob and Esau. And so continuing on, verse 2, it says, "And made many wars, and won many strongholds, and slew the kings of the earth, and went through to the ends of the earth, and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted, and his heart was lifted." And so Esau Edom, in this part right here, Alexander, before he was making moves and telling his military to go here and there to rape and pillage, the earth was at rest. There was no world wars in the scales until Esau Edom showed up. The Persians, the Medes, all these other empires, the Babylonians, they what they did is they stuck to their areas. But Alexander, the Edomites, they spread out as far as they could. And so right here is kind of just like an indicator, letting you know that this is the Edomites that the Bible's speaking about, the so-called white people, because that's really, it's in their nature. You see it time and time again, what they were capable of and what they established with that blessing of the sword. So I'm going to read from verse 2 again. It says, "And made many wars, and won many strongholds, and slew the kings of the earth, and went through to the ends of the earth, and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted, and his heart was lifted up. And he gathered mighty, strong hosts, and ruled over countries, and nations, and kings, who became tributaries unto him. And after these things he fell sick, and perceived that he should die." Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail of Alexander's lifestyle, because right here, all you really need to know is that this guy was about killing. He was about war, pillaging, and doing all the things that an Edomite is known to do. And they're also known to do other things, which, like I said, I'm not going to get too into details on why Alexander fell sick. But this person was not able to produce seed. He didn't have any offsprings. So all the things that he took on the face of the earth, he couldn't distribute it to his kids. He had to distribute it to his four generals. So continuing on, This is verse 6. Wherefore he called his servants such as were honorable and had been brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom among them while he was yet alive. So Alexander reigned 12 years and then died. So it was a short rulership. And not to mention that even within that short rulership, he was able to like just make the whole world in distress. Because before him, whole earth was at peace, but just within 12 years, just a millisecond in the Lord's eyes, because time is different for him, with just within a millisecond, Esau Edom had gathered all of these places. And so it's just to show you that that's the blessing of the sword that this devil had. It only took him 12 years to accomplish that. In verse 8, it says, And his servants bare rule every one in his place. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons, and them many years. And evils were multiplied in the earth. So when you had one Edomite running the show, now he split it and he gave it to 4 Edomites running the show. And then their lineage started to proliferate and push wickedness out throughout the 4 corners. You think they stopped doing what Alexander was establishing, guess again. All of these generals, like specifically Ptolemy, basically had South Africa, or North Africa, going down the Nile in subjugation throughout his whole rulership up until the Romans started to take over, and it was their turn to rule. But just going into Esau Edom's nature and his spirit. So I'm going to read this here in Habakkuk 2. And so I'll start at verse 1 because I like to emphasize when we go out through the highways and hedges, we do these video epistles, and we have those signs specifically pointing out about who is Esau Edom, what's his nature. He's the caveman that the Bible speaks of. He is the wicked. He is the Lord's sword. So when we're reading these things, that's part of prophecy. That's part of the spirit and testimony of Yahweh B'Hashem Yahweh Shai, because they're the currently ones who are ruling the earth, so that when Yahweh Shai returns, he's going to slay utterly old and young. It's going to ultimately cast down all these things that Esau Edom has built up and established. Wherever he built, thus will Yahweh B'Hashem Yahweh Shai throw down. So when we're doing these videos, we're not going to dismiss Esau Edom. He's crucial to the plot. So I'm going to read this in Habakkuk 2, starting at verse 1. It says, I will stand upon my watch and set me upon the tower, and will watch to see what he will say unto me, and what I shall answer when I am reproved. And the Lord answered me and said, Write the vision and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it. So we're doing the job of a watchman, blowing the trumpet in Zion, sounding the alarm for our people. And those who have ears to hear, because that's actually still why we're out there on the highways and hedges, because you still see an awakening amongst the Israelites, the so-called blacks, Latinos, Native Americans. You get new people coming up to our camps wanting to take notes, wanting to learn and drink this sincere milk, which that's a beautiful thing, but also lets you know that we're that much nearer to the end, Yahweh Shai's return, and the beginning of righteous rulership with the Israelites in power. So these things are moving quickly for the elect's sake. So as we continue to speak these things, we're not losing momentum. And this isn't about numbers, but the elect is being gathered nonetheless. So we're still out there on the highways and hedges prophesying and setting our face against Mount Seir. So I'm going to continue on Habakkuk 2. Habakkuk 2, and continuing on in verse 3. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry. And we can see it's not tarrying anymore. The elect is standing upon their feet with great boldness, and now Esau Edom knows that he has but a short time to rule, for him to do all of his wickedness. And I'm going to continue on. Verse 5, it says, verse 4, it says, Behold, his soul, which is lifted up, is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. And the one whose soul is not upright is Esau Edom. Who else could it be? Where and who is he, if not the Edomite? So continuing on, verse 5, because I want to get to verse 9, but I'll read it right here, just going down into it. Verse 5, it says, Yea, also because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlarges his desire as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. And right there, how he gathers all the nations and heapeth to him all the people. The Greeks did that. The Romans did that. If that's how Paul was able to claim that he was a Roman citizen, because he was born in that jurisdiction that the Romans had, and basically he had the citizenship, and so that was kind of like a thing, a custom that the Edomites were doing. And one of the places that's doing that today is basically just anywhere an Edomite is at, over here in America. Like if you're a so-called Latino, a Mexican citizen, you come over here to the United States, have a child, that baby is considered an American citizen. And so just think about that in a grander scheme. Esau Edom literally has one of every heathen here on America, being heathen slaves. You got Elamites and Hamites from just like literally every like corner of the earth. And so that's Esau Edom heaping all these nations to himself. And pretty much they all bow down to Esau Edom. Just like it says in Psalms 83, they are all in cahoots with each other, mainly to keep the nation of Israel down. We're the only ones out of that party, in that club. And you don't want to be in that club, because it's woe unto those ultimately at the end. But I'm going to continue on. I'm just going to jump down to verse 9, because this is the point I want to read for this chapter. Or actually, I'll read it, verse 8. It says, Because thou hast spoiled many nations, all the remnant of the people shall spoil thee, because of men's blood, and for the violence of the land, of the city, and of all that dwell therein. Woe to him that coveteth an evil covetousness to his house, that he may set his nest on high, that he may be delivered from the power of evil. And so that's what Esau Edom is basically doing. These are his characteristics. He's literally trying to hide away from the judgment of Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai. He's building a whole bunch of these bunkers, but through the Spirit, only a few of those bunkers are going to survive and last through the thermonuclear explosions. And those space stations, same thing. There may be one or two that survive the chariots, and really, because those are going to be the ones fitted for slavery. The only type of salvation they're going to receive. Just like it says in Revelation 6, they're basically going to hide into the mountains from the wrath of the Lamb. That's speaking about Yahweh Shai. Who else would that be speaking about? And who else, or those would be the ones that are hiding in the mountains? Well, only a person who has that type of technology, resources, and finances to actually have those things are the Edomites. So I want to read a little bit here about Obadiah, which you could read this whole book. It's a beautiful book, but just to get to the point, going into the characteristics of Esau Edom, I'm going to read from the top. This is Obadiah 1 verse 1. It says, The vision of Obadiah. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh power concerning Edom. We have heard a rumor from the Lord, and an ambassador is sent among the heathen. Arise ye, and let us rise up against her in battle. And so right now, you're witnessing that. All these heathens, even though they're still in cahoots with Esau Edom is doing a whole bunch of wayward things, to the point where all these other nations are about to go toe-to-toe against it. And now they all have the power of thermonuclear weapons. They all have the type of tanks and artillery and all weapons, swords, whatever. All these heathens have that now. And if you read that in the book of Joel, the Spirit is waking up the mighty men amongst these heathens so they can be gathered to the valley of Yahweh-Shappah. So this is what's happening right here. Esau Edom is now becoming small amongst these heathen, and he's greatly despised. He's literally a proverb and a byword now, because you're witnessing the curses lift off from the Israelites, so-called blacks, Latinos, Native Americans, and now starting to jump on our enemy, Esau Edom. So continuing on in verse 3, The pride of thine heart hath deceived thee, thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, Who shall bring me down to the ground? And just because I'm not going to go into it, but we were just reading in the book of Habakkuk about this person whose soul is not lifted upright. He's a proud man, gathering all these nations to himself. So you got to consider who the scriptures are speaking about here. So again, from verse 3, it says, "The pride of thine heart hath deceived thee, thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rocks, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground?" And in ancient times, when Esau Edom was living in Mount Seir, they were living in the clefts of the rocks. That's where you get the term troglodytes, because the Canaanites who were living in that area before, the Edomites took that land over. And so they were basically the cave dwellers in that region. So continuing on, verse 4, it says, "Though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, and though thou set thy nest among the stars, thence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord." Because that is Esau Edom's nature, to be all up in the hills and the clefts of the rocks like the eagle. And then you look at all of what he was doing in history, where you could say the Romans, the Greeks, the Nazis, modern day people, these nations, they all have that eagle as their insignia, their emblem, their sigil. That's the spirit of Esau Edom. All right, so continuing on, verse 5, it says, "If thieves came to thee," so like it says, "If thieves came to thee, and if robbers by night, how art thou cut off? Would they not have stolen till they have enough? If the grape gatherers came to thee, would they not leave some grapes? How are the things of Esau searched out? How are his hidden things sought up? All the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee. There is none understanding in him." And so, as I was saying, quoting in Psalms 83, Esau Edom is, in charge of these heathens to keep us down. But right now, they're starting to have infighting. You're getting Egyptian against Egyptian. Even amongst Edomites, you're getting Edomites against Edomites. And that's just the spirit of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai causing that division, causing that confusion, because he's hardening their hearts, basically getting ready for that final great judgment. So I'm going to read this last chapter here. It's Job 20:6. It says, I'll read from right here. It says, Job 20:6, "Though his excellency mount up to the heavens, and his head reacheth unto the clouds, yet he shall perish forever like his own dung, which they which have seen him shall say, Where is he? He shall fly away as a dream, and shall not be found. Yea, he shall be chased away as a vision of the night. The eye also which saw him shall see him no more, neither shall his place any more behold him." And this prophecy is going to take place. When Yahweh Shai returns, he's going to swat all of these star stations. He's going to uproot all of these bunkers and take out whatever heathens or Edomites survive the thermonuclear destruction. But the ones that are going to get out of those bunkers are going to be put into captivity. And that's basically the end-all be-all of Esau Edom. As I'm reading here, pretty much his excellency mounted up high, but it's basically pride goeth before a fall. And the Heavenly Father puffed Esau Edom up to the point like this so that his fall is great. So that everybody, when they see them, they're going to say, "How art thou fallen, O Lucifer, son of the morning?" As it says in the book of Isaiah 14, just to roughly quote that, all these other heathens are going to see and witness the great fall that Esau Edom is going to go through. And it's already been spoken about. It's been written about, and now we're prophesying about it. And that's why Esau Edom is afraid. And that's why the hopeful elect, when they hear that, it galvanizes them and makes them return to Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. And this is why we set our face against Mount Seir. This right here was all prophecy, what we're speaking about. So it's within our bones to speak these things until we witness it. But with that, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rachakadash, Shalom Akim.